Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House. He ran for president, and he's the author of Vengeance, a big New York Times bestseller. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you.
Good morning to you. There's a picture of the book.
Good morning. And by the way, I just want to mention about Brian's last segment. When I wrote Understanding Trump, I have a whole section on how parallel Trump and Andrew Jackson are. And I think that Brian's book on Andrew Jackson is remarkably helpful for people who'd want to have a better understanding of how President Trump operates. Jackson was a remarkable figure, and Brian did a great service to the country by writing that book.
Well, there you go. All right, let's talk a little bit about the people who serve our nation. It looks, Mr. Speaker, to a lot of people that when you look at some of the things that have been revealed in the last week or two regarding senior management at the FBI, that there could be a political bias clouding the determination whether or not to go forward with prosecutions and whatnot. And you look at the case of Peter Strzok, who was text messaging apparently to the tune of 10,000 text messages to his girlfriend, who is a lawyer, apparently also on the special counsel. And you wonder, how did they find out about this? How did the Inspector General find out about it? How did Mr. Mueller find out about it? There are a lot of questions that are really perplexing people.
Well, first of all, if you have 10,000 text messages, you have to wonder, when did they get any work done? They're apparently spending a lot of their time just texting each other.
Can you imagine what's in those text messages?
I think this is... Well, I hope they're going to be revealed presently. Look, I think, first of all, that we now know that had Hillary won, the corruption would have gotten bigger. It would have gotten deeper. We have never learned any of this. And I think it's pretty appalling. The level of corruption we're beginning to see in the FBI. I mean, it's clear, for example, that the number 2 person at the FBI should be recusing himself because his wife received hundreds of thousands of dollars of donations as a Democratic candidate. How can you seriously say this guy's neutral? It's clear that Mueller was bringing in people who are aggressive Democratic donors as the lawyers. Several of whom have very bad reputations for overreaching as prosecutors, have been knocked down by the Supreme Court on 9-0 votes. I originally thought Mueller might be an honest and a reasonable man, but the more I watched who they were hiring, how they were organizing, what they're doing, and ask yourself this simple question. How can Hillary's assistants all have lied? The key assistants clearly lied to the FBI. Mm-hmm. Not a single one of them has a felony conviction. On the other hand, if you've served your country for 35 years, as General Flynn did, now, and the argument is not, by the way, anything that happened in the campaign. It's not anything about collusion. It's about something he did during the transition when he was the president's appointed transition leader for national security. The difference in approach to Clinton corruption, which gets a pass, and General Flynn is, I think, a sign of how sick the system is.
Mr. Speaker, how then could you restore trust? Is it re-looking at Hillary Clinton? Is it doing this investigation differently? What do you do?
Well, the first thing you do is you get the Congress to do its job. Why is McNabb, the number 2 guy at the FBI, not recusing himself? Why is he in a position of authority? You go back and you look at why was Hillary not put under oath? I mean, she could never be charged as Flynn was because they never put her under oath. So this whole thing, Comey, I think, clearly was engaged. The system clearly at the very top. The average FBI agent is still as honest and as serious and as hardworking as ever. But at the very top, the Justice Department and the FBI became corrupted. And I think we have to be honest and use that language. This is not an occasional mistake. This was covering up for the next president, they thought, covering up for their foundation, covering up for their relationship with Russia and Uranium One, covering up for the entire process of investigation. How could she delete 33,000 emails and not have been guilty of something? How could she have a private server in her basement illegally against all State Department rules and not be guilty of something? And why is the witch hunt over here for people who've served their country in battle and who are basically decent guys and who are getting picked off, frankly, I think, and Michael Ledeen wrote a great article about this, who knows General Flynn very well, and Ledeen said, look, the FBI has the power to tell you we're going to bankrupt your family, we're going to go after your son. Now, do you want to take a minor plea and get this over with, or do you want us to destroy you? Yeah. Well, that's not justice. That's the worst kind of third world petty dictatorship exercised by bureaucrats.
Corrupt, and it seems like there's a double standard. Mr. Speaker, we also wanted to ask you about this. Yesterday, the president, as you know, declared Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Pope Francis immediately slammed the president yesterday morning for recognizing Jerusalem as the capital. So, as your wife is the ambassador to the Vatican, we want to know, how does this affect our relations with the Vatican? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think you have two extraordinarily strong historic personalities in Pope Francis and in President Trump. They had a very, very good meeting when President Trump visited. I know that the Vatican would like to have a good relationship. Sometimes they're going to have deep disagreements. This is one of those times. On issues that Callista's working on, like human trafficking, helping defend Christians in the Middle East, working on refugee camps. There are a number of, the United States is the largest donor, for example, to helping refugees in the world by a huge margin. So there are places where we're very much in agreement. There are a couple of places we're in disagreement. And I think the goal here is to be honest with each other, recognize when there's a disagreement, but also recognize how many different ways in which the Vatican and the United States are actually collaborators in favor of similar patterns. And it's always complicated. I mean, that's just the nature of foreign policy.
All right.
Yeah, but just briefly, why would the Vatican take issue with this decision?
Well, I think, look, the Pope believes deeply that keeping Jerusalem separate from politics as the center of, obviously, Judaism, the center of Christianity, the third most important city in Islam, that is a better strategy. The president, looking at the right of Israel to name its own capital, disagrees with that. This is an honest, legitimate disagreement. These things are going to happen on occasion. And what you have to do is decide that the larger relationship is worth preserving, even though you agree to have a strong disagreement about this particular issue.
Sure. All right. Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, we thank you very much for joining us from the Washington, D.C. area.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Great to see you.